Hello, this is Dave Ellis. I'm the author of Becoming a Master Student, and I'm going to be conducting this virtual gathering today on critical thinking. Welcome. Really glad to have you join us on October 31st. It's Halloween, and there's just been a huge blizzard on the East Coast, and I noticed a few of you are joining us from the East Coast. I want to let you know that our hearts and minds and thoughts are with you, and I am so sorry for the storm that's caused people such big problems. I welcome many of you from across the country. I see that Diane is here, and Elizabeth, and Genevieve, and Amy, and Beth, and Scott, and Judith, and Joyce, and Camille, and Tammy, and Marilyn, and Maureen, and Kim, and, well, way too many to name everybody. Hello, Carol, Doug, Kathleen, Steve, Kim, lots of people from around the country. I welcome you and want to let you know that the purpose of this session, of this gathering, is for you to discover and invent. Invent, that's a key word here. And incorporate new ways to assist students to think critically and to think creatively so that the students can demonstrate the difference between knowing and possessing the ability to figure things out. That's why we're here, to assist you to discover, invent, and incorporate new ways to assist students. We will review the 7 attitudes that promote critical thinking, or at least 7, not the 7, but 7 of them, and also revisit the principles of Bloom's taxonomy. We'll also look at a lot of ways to promote creative thinking. So there's a lot to do today. I have a lot to say, but my purpose here is not to say a lot. It's to get you to think a lot. More about that in a few minutes, but I want to just very briefly remind you that last week we had another gathering like this, and its purpose was to inspire students to learn and achieve 7 methods for increasing motivation and 12 major strategies for creating success. We also talked about affirmations and visualizations to help students improve their attitudes. You can listen to that session by linking to this long URL. I realize that you actually can't link to it from your screen right now. It's not a hot link. You can only see my screen. So if you don't have time to copy that long URL, you can email me, dave@daveellisleadership.com. And I see I've misspelled com, but it's dave@daveellisleadership.com. You can email me there, and I'll send you that link. That was last week. This week, again, we're here to look at critical and creative thinking. I want to very briefly introduce myself. Some of you know me. I've met some of you. I don't know some of you. But I've been involved in student success for over 30 years. I started a course in 1979. Wow, that was a while ago. 33 years ago. It was a course designed to help students succeed in school and in life. And then in 1981, I began to train teachers all across the United States and Canada to offer a course. I've then worked with people around the world, and over 5 million people have gone through the program that uses Becoming a Master Student. So that's a little bit about me. I've also written or co-written 7 other books, including a book on life coaching. But just as a quick little personal share, I want you to meet 3 of the most precious beings, actually 4. That's my grandson, Wilson, my granddaughter, Rosemary. There's another picture of Rosemary. And my granddaughter, Mary Raindrop. And, I also wanted to introduce you to Bill Rentz. He's on the line. He might jump in. Bill and I have worked together for many years. And also Joshua Lightheart, who is assisting with this program so that you can all break into small groups. I'm really here to assist you today to think what you've never thought. And, of course, that's what we are doing when we assist students in critical thinking. Now, as I mentioned, I've got a few things to say about critical thinking, but for me to talk about it for most of this time would be almost like a swimming instructor doing nothing but talking about swimming instead of having people get into the water. 2 days ago, I talked to a man who's taught tennis all his life, and he said, of course, it doesn't help people learn tennis to talk about tennis. It's time to get on the field. So we're going to do this on this call. I'm going to have you write. I'm going to have you think. I'm going to have you speak to each other. So not only am I here to get you to think what you've never thought, I'm also here on this call to get you to write what you have never written. Maybe even to say what you've never said. That's why we're going to break into groups. My job is to help you maybe even feel what you've never felt. And I believe that what's on the screen, for those of you who see the screen, we're going to find out in a minute who you are, and I told you a little bit about me, and I want to know if you can not only listen to my voice, but hear and see what I'm saying. Because the purpose of this thinking what you've never thought is so you can do what you've never done. It's so that you can create a life that you've never had. So that we all, as instructors, as administrators, as educators, and as students, can have a world that we've never had. That's where we're headed. And that's what we're doing today. But what I'd like to know is a little bit about you. So first of all, I want to know if you can see this screen. So if you are connected visually as well as auditorily, if you're on the computer, please press 1 on your telephone keypad. On my computer, I have a list of all of you that are on the call. How I knew your names. If you cannot see the screen, please press 2 on your keypad. No problem. But if you can't see the screen, I just want to know, because part of this gathering is for me to demonstrate the value of the visual as well as the auditory. And so far, what I see is that 87% of you can see the screen. And so far, no one has voted no, but 13% of you haven't yet voted. So I just want to ask a few of you to look again. Marianne, I don't see a vote. Barbara, I don't see a vote. Leanne, I don't see a vote. Now, it could be that you all voted and you're on a cell phone and it's just not coming through. I'd like you to press 1 on your telephone keypad if you can see my screen, and 2 if you cannot. Thank you very much for voting. I've got just a couple more surveys here, and then we're going to get into our purpose of thinking. So Joshua, my assistant, who I showed you a picture of, is gathering the survey results so that we can know what it is that you said on that survey, and then we're going to lower your hands. And now we're going to ask you another question, which is up on the screen for those of you who can see the screen. And the question is, what's your position at your institution? Are you a faculty member? If so, press 1. Are you a course coordinator? Primarily, some of you are also a faculty and course coordinator, but if primarily a course coordinator, press 2. Administrator, press 3. If you have some other function, press 4. Faculty 1, course coordinator 2, administrator 3, some other function 4. Most of you have voted. Thank you very much. All but one person has voted. And 39% of you are primarily faculty, 14% course coordinators, 14% also administrators, and 19% said that you had some other function. I've got 2 more other quick surveys, and this one has to do with whether or not you use becoming a master student. I am committed to having this virtual gathering be very useful whether or not you use becoming a master student, but I'd like to know. So if you use the book, press 1. If you do not, press 2 if you're using a different book. Press 3 if you're not using a book, but you're teaching a course. Press 4 if you're considering using becoming a master student in your course. Press 5 if this doesn't apply to you because you're not maybe teaching a course. 1 if you use becoming a master student. 2 if not, but you're using a different book. 3 if no, but you're using not no book, 4 if you're considering becoming a master's student, and 5 if this question doesn't apply. Only 9% of you are using becoming a master's student, so I'm really pleased about my commitment to have this time together be very useful, whether or not you're using the book that I wrote. The principles that I've been teaching for 30 years is that it's very useful to have a book, but it's not necessary to use one in particular. The last question I have for you is how many people on your telephone line? The reason I want to know this is because in a few minutes we're going to break into groups. I'm going to have you think, I'm going to have you write, and then I'm going to have you divide into groups. And if you have 3 or more people on the same line, we won't put you in a group. So if you're on a phone with just you on the line, press 1. If there's 2 of you sharing a speakerphone, press 2. We'll still move you into a group. If you are 3 people on a speakerphone, or 4 people, press 3 or 4, or 5 if there's more than 5 of you. So if there's 3 or more people on your line, on your speakerphone, press 3, 4 more, press 4, 5 or more, press 5. Reason we're asking you that is so that when we divide into groups in a few minutes, those of you who have 3 or more people, we're just going to have you talk among yourselves. So would like to know, Lolita, Marilyn, if you'd press 1 to 5 on your keypad. Barry, if you'd press 1 to 5 on your keypad, just so that we know how many people. Maureen, thank you for voting. Beverly and Barry, if you'd let us know how many people. Thank you very much. All right. So here we go. My job is to assist you to think what you've never thought. Now, I've got a lot of suggestions for how to assist students to do this. I'm going to get to my ideas in a few minutes. But first of all, I want to get to yours. And the first way we're going to do this is to have you write. And what I'm going to ask that you write now is how you can assist students to think what they've never thought. So rather than talking about thinking, I'm going to ask you to think. Once you've thought, I'm going to have you write. Once you've written, I'm going to have you speak in small groups. Now, I'm going to be quiet for a minute. And your job during this minute is to think what you've never thought and to write what you've never written about what you could do as an educator to assist others critically think in ways that they generally wouldn't. Please pause now. Many of you, the first thing that will happen when I stop talking is there will be no thoughts. And then when you ask yourself, well, how could I help others think? The first thought that might appear is, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I came here to hear Dave, not to hear myself. But my job is actually to get you to hear yourself and to hear yourself think something brand new. Well, we'll see how it works. I'll be quiet for a minute to give you a chance to listen to yourself rather than listen to me. And as you do that, please write down ways that you could assist others, not just students, but coworkers or even yourself to think critically. 1 minute of quiet. Again. Well, that's a minute. Really interested to see what you come up with. And on your screen, some of you have a chat box in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and it got there because there was some chatting going on before I started this call. Some of you don't have it, but if you want to get rid of that chat box, which now all of you have up on the screen, you can. There's a little X in the upper right-hand corner, and if you just click on that X in the upper right-hand corner of the chat box, it will go away. Well, I have before you a list of ideas on critical thinking and creative thinking, and now I want to hear from you. I want to know what are your best strategies to assist students to think. So I want to get a few ideas from you, and then we're going to then I'm going to give you a few of my ideas, and we're going to break into groups. But first of all, I'd like to have you raise your hand, and
Dave, it would be best if people would press 5 on their telephone keypad to raise their hand for this question.
Great. So please press 5 on your telephone keypad, and that way I'll be able to call on you and find out if you have an idea that would be great to speak. All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your participation, and we're going to start with Marilyn. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Challenge what someone else said, be able to further a discussion rather than just taking things at face value.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Let me see if I got it, Marilyn, because the very first part of what you said I missed. But I think you said that rather than just taking whatever we hear from others at face value, that we're really going to be questioners. Did I get that right?
Yes, and also to think outside the box.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Marilyn. And Barbara, what was your idea?
Well, I think it's always good to get people to think if you ask what-if questions.
Yeah.
They become a little more creative and think a little differently, I think.
Yep. Thank you, Barbara. I agree. I think that's a wonderful way to get people to consider new options, is to ask questions, and particularly those kind of open-ended questions like what if, and any other really open-ended question. And Margaret, go ahead.
I was just thinking to model it in the classroom and basically doing some of the things that have been mentioned, kind of asking what if about statements that we ask, or adding some what ifs to something that we're talking about to model it for students before we ask them to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the best ways that we can encourage others to think, which is to think for ourselves. Leanne, go ahead.
Well, I guess people have sort of taken my answers, but another one that I would add is really to encourage students to be curious. My students just don't seem to be really curious about the world. So I encourage curiosity.
Yeah, and what you just modeled, Leanne, is the other thing that I think we can do, is to go beyond others' answers. So that when we, and you just did it, some of the other people said maybe what you had thought, but you went beyond that, and you came up with another idea, which in this case was a great one, of course, which is to encourage curiosity. Camille, go ahead.
Hi. Well, I think some of the things I put have already been covered, but similar to Marilyn, I like to challenge people's basic assumptions about things and just have them realize that it's okay to question things and, as Marilyn said, not take them at face value. I also try to offer prompts to consider perhaps unconsidered aspects of whatever the topic is. So I'll give people those sort of consider these things and then leave it for them to try to look at a particular topic or idea from, whether it's personal or emotional or physical or community, national, global. I try to give them ideas so they don't just so they they're encouraged to be curious.
Yes, very good. Thanks a lot. We got a lot of people's hands up. We're going to take one more, and then I've got a few ideas myself. Go ahead, Sarah.
Can you hear me?
I can, but you're a little bit distant from the speakerphone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What we have here is we also thought about thinking about assumptions, but I'll add to that and say perceptions as well as fact versus opinion.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that, but I think you said something about also challenging not only assumptions, but to challenge their perceptions.
Right, their perceptions as well as fact versus opinion.
Facts versus opinions and perceptions. Very good. Thanks a lot, because sometimes what we perceive is not real. In the spirit of Halloween, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what sometimes I might look like if it wasn't accurate, or what I look like when it is accurate. So thank you for those ideas about how we can assist students to think. Now, I've got a few myself, and I present these critical thinking strategies. Please listen to them not as my answer, because they're no better than yours. These are just some ideas that I have about how we can assist people. And that is, first of all, to ask them to look from different viewpoints. These ideas are expanded on in Becoming a Master Student. If you don't use that book, which most of you don't, you can sample that book from Cengage, from Wadsworth, and read about these ideas. But of course, these critical thinking skills are outlined in lots of different places. And the idea of viewing things from different perspectives is certainly one that we all know about, but sometimes we forget to practice, like we forget to practice tolerance, acceptance. And just as was mentioned, the idea of looking for evidence and looking at logic. Sometimes we forget to look at the facts, and we base our thinking only on the opinions of others. And we forget to consider where those opinions come from, or where those facts, where that evidence comes from. Particularly in this day and age of the internet and social media, we often get information that comes from very unreliable sources. We already talked about this idea of questioning everything. I love the bumper sticker that says question authority, and the subline is says who. And I believe that one of the best ways that we can think more clearly is to write more clearly. And I don't just mean writing clearly in terms of the grammar, but even in terms of penmanship. I believe that when we ask students to slow their writing down, it slows their thinking down. And slower thinking creates more effective thinking. And then, of course, there's Bloom's Taxonomy. I know that most of you have been exposed to this, but I want to review it very quickly again, because I think when Bloom came up with this idea, this levels of thinking, it was really brilliant. And we can bring these to our coworkers, we can bring these to our students, and we can encourage them to go beyond just remembering and regurgitating information, and even beyond level 2 of Bloom's Taxonomy of understanding, to go up to where we can actually grab information and knowledge so fully that we can apply it. But more than that, that we then begin to be able to analyze it and evaluate it to get to the point where we're actually using information and what we learn to be creative. Generally, this taxonomy, these 6 levels of thinking, critical thinking, are arranged in a pyramid. Those of you who see the screen see that pyramid that's often associated with Bloom's taxonomy. Well, there you've heard some of your own thoughts about thinking, and you've just been exposed to a few ideas from me and a few ideas from others. Now, in a moment, I'm going to have you get into small groups and talk to each other. But first of all, I'd like to have you apply the technique that I talked about a minute ago, which is writing. So please take a moment now and write a discovery statement and a related intention. Now, the discovery statement goes like this. You write down, I discovered that I, or I learned that I rediscovered that I, or I relearned that I. And what you're writing about is what you're learning with regard to critical thinking right now. This 26 minutes that we've spent together so far, what are you discovering about yourself with regard to thinking? And then, after you've written that discovery statement, please write an intention statement. Write down, I intend to, or I promise to, my goal is to. So that in the next 70 seconds, I'm going to be quiet this time, longer than last time. And if you're listening to the recording, please participate in the same way that I've asked everybody on the live call to participate. Is to pause now and write down, what are you discovering about yourself or rediscovering? What are you learning or relearning about yourself? Well, please take the time now. I'll be quiet for 70 seconds while you write. And then after you write, I'm going to break you into groups for you to speak. 70 seconds, please begin to write. Josh? Now what we're going to do is have you go into small groups, and I want to describe this a little bit. It's a kind of a miracle of this phone system that we're using, and a few of you have joined this call since we asked you how many people were in your room. But a few of you are on a speakerphone, and we're not going to put you into a small group. But most of you, even those of you who joined late, we're going to move you into a group of 3 or 4 people. Now, in a minute, you're going to hear a chime. And when you hear that chime, you will no longer be into this large group, being me speaking to all of you, but instead you're going to be in a small group. So as soon as you hear that chime, please, one of you, take the leadership role. And just immediately after that chime, say your name and ask who else is in the group. And then when you hear their names, please write them down, each of you. As a way to really get yourself involved, write down the names of everybody else in the group. Then whoever is the leader, that's the first person who spoke, please share one of your discoveries and one of your intentions. And then call on one of the other people in the group to share one of their discoveries and one of their intentions. You're going to have 4 minutes in this group. And during that 4 minutes, you'll actually have a timer up on the screen so that you can see that how much time is going by. But after 3 minutes, I'm going to hit the chime once, so you'll know that 1 minute is up. And make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. Leader, if one of the people in your group is kind of going on a little too long, please just say thank you and call on another person. Because I want you all to not only get a chance to think what you've never thought, but I want you to get a chance to speak what you've never spoken. Your idea is to speak what are you learning about yourself and what do you intend to do differently. While you're in those groups, I'm going to be poking around and listening. So Joshua, would you please move the people that aren't in a group into a group so we have groups of 3 or even 4 people? You can do that now. I'm not going to find out if they're on a speakerphone. Just go ahead and move them into the group. And as I mentioned, while you're in your groups, I'm going to be listening in and just seeing what you're saying. So you've got 4 minutes, and we're going to move you into your groups now. All right. Thank you. Thanks for speaking. Got so engrossed in listening to all of what you're discovering about yourself and what you're intending to do differently with regard to thinking that I forgot to start that timer. Some of you noticed that, but I then reset it. So you had about 4 minutes to speak to each other. We're going to break into groups again on this call, but I'd like to first of all hear from a few of you that that either spoke a discovery or an intention that was very powerful, or you maybe heard in your group. I sure heard a lot of powerful intentions while I was speaking around. I also noticed that a couple of groups didn't sound like you were able to speak with each other. I don't know if maybe you had your phones on mute or if there was some other problem. But most of you were participating. Thank you. Now I'd like to hear from a few of you publicly. So please press 5 on your keypad if you're willing to tell us an intention or a discovery that was quite powerful, or if you're willing to share something that you heard that was quite powerful. So please press 5 on your keypad. I noticed a couple of you pressed 3. I'm not sure if that was here. Here we go. We're going to first of all hear from Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Yes, I guess one of the things that we talked about that I brought up was your discussion in terms of kind of how to get our students to think, critically. And I think as a faculty member, one of the things that I'm kind of discovering and then have the intention to do better is to quiet my own brain in order to do my best thinking in terms of putting together courses, really looking at, my example was I teach in an 8-week course. I sometimes wonder if we're really allowing our students to kind of think critically in that short amount of time, trying to kind of get them through the class. So it gave me some food for thought to say, how can I quiet my own brain then to prepare a better and more robust course for my students?
Right. Thanks, Amy. So the intention is to take the time, and in that time to really quiet your own brain. And Kim, what do you have to say? Go ahead, Kim. Excuse me, Kim, I didn't have you off mute, but now I do, so please start over.
I said that it was interesting to me as we went through it. One of the things that spoke to me was that while I'm using Bloom's taxonomy, I seem to spend a lot of my time with my students in those first 3 levels, and I intend to move them up the levels. And one of the techniques that someone in our group mentioned was using a 1-minute paper as a way to gather students' understandings of assigned readings and get them to be operating in that analyzing and evaluating level, and also starting to create by writing those 1-minute papers about their thoughts.
Thanks, Kim. I think that that's a really good idea in a classroom to not just have students go on and write long essays that they have to take home and bring back, but sometimes right in the classroom to have them demonstrate even their understanding at level 2 is great, but particularly if they can write in a way that demonstrates their analyzing and evaluating the material, and maybe even using it to reach a level of creativity. Thanks a lot. And Barbara, go ahead.
Well, our group talked about the same as your first caller did, that if we take the time to, the thing that we discovered about ourselves is that if we take the time to quiet our minds, we tend to think better. And we expect sometimes our students will pick up your pencil, and I might give them a prompt to begin journaling, and I'll say, start right now. and that I should give them the courtesy of also having a moment of silence before they begin writing so that they can think and collect their thoughts, because so many times it's difficult to think as you write, and to give them that luxury of having that time to collect their thoughts before they actually start to write.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. And I believe that when we give students time to write questions before we ask them if they have any questions, then they'll take the time to, first of all, think through and see if they have questions, search for them, and then they'll also take the time to speak much higher quality questions or comments if they've first written. And one more comment here from Camille, and then we're going to talk about creative thinking. Go ahead, Camille.
Hi. Well, it was kind of funny because my other thought was about challenging assumptions, and one thing I realized is that I have operated on the assumption that students know what critical thinking is, and so I needed to challenge my own assumption in that regard and make sure that it was more clearly defined for them and to give them tools. But what was really powerful was one of our group members talked about the interrelatedness of all the levels. You know, that they don't all just necessarily happen sequentially and in a vacuum from each other. And I thought that was really, you know, the idea of an integrative approach too, and to teach that. And to, when students ask a question of the teacher or instructor, to kind of, before saying anything, to ask them what they think, so that you're just modeling that and making that space available for them to tell you what they think before you start answering their questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Camille. Thank you. That's, of course, what I intended to model a few minutes ago, which was to, first of all, have you think about critical thinking, and then to tell you some of what I thought. I think another option is for us to give a few ideas about what we think, and then, again, ask the participants or students to create for themselves, and then to come back with our thoughts. But certainly the classroom is a place more for facilitating thinking of the students than it is to demonstrate the thinking of the instructor. When I leave the classroom, I really want the students to feel like they are really smart and not have that opinion necessarily about me. So I'm not here to impress the students. I'm here to help the students impress themselves. Well, I want to demonstrate this second idea about first offering some ideas and then getting yours and then offering some more with regard to creative thinking. And my strategy here is to demonstrate creating creation. So what are the ways that we actually can assist others and ourselves to be creative and to think creatively? So I've got a bunch of ideas. Again, I'm going to present a few, and then I will ask you to come up with some, and then I'll present a few more. And I'll give you time to write. So first of all, it's to take it on. It's to really commit to being creative. And in that process of taking it on and setting aside the time, to let go of these thoughts like, I'm not creative, and really replace those and adopt the attitude and the thoughts, I am creative, or I can create, even being more creative. So we're talking about creating creation. What is the way that what can we do so that we are much more creative, and what can we do so that students are much more creative? And of course, one of the techniques, in addition to setting aside time and taking it on and adopting positive attitudes, is to brainstorm. I want to remind you of the rules of brainstorming. First of all, to limit the time, and also to allow wild and crazy ideas. While we're limiting the time and allowing wild and crazy ideas, we postpone evaluation until later. Yes, you can evaluate ideas, but not during the creative process. During the creative process, you don't evaluate, you don't criticize, you just build on previous ideas as well as the ideas you have. Well, I also think it works to be creative by creating a special place to actually do this creation, and to learn the process of creating nothing. The process of being able to just pause and say, it's a blank slate. It's space in which to create, space in which to let my brain invent. Sometimes invent questions, because questions really foster creativity. So the question I have of you is, yeah, you've got some of my ideas up on the screen, and I've just presented them for those of you who don't see the screen. But I'd like to hear your ideas now. So first of all, I'll give you a minute, just like before. During this minute, what I'd like you to do is to create some new ways that you can assist others, yourself, your coworkers, students. I'd like you to invent now some new ways to assist others to be creative. And see if you can come up with something brand new, something you've never heard, something you've never thought. Quiet for a minute while you write down new ways to create being creative. Minute, write. Listening to the call on a recording, please write. Right. Thank you. Well, I've got a few more ideas, and then actually, before I present my ideas, I'd way rather listen to your ideas. So let me hear a few. Please press 5 on your keypad and give me a few ideas about how you could assist yourself or others in being more creative, in assisting creative thinking. We'll start with you, Kim. Go ahead.
One of the things I currently do in my class is have students create an individual learning project. So they have to determine something that they're curious about, something they'd like to learn more about, and then design how they're going to go about learning that and what the finished product is going to look like, how they're going to tell me and the rest of the class what they learned.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, because when we put, in a way, people on the spot, they're likely to be more creative. And that's putting them on the spot in a very powerful way. Go ahead, Joyce.
Create scenarios where they have to come up with a solution where there's no time or money constraints.
Oh, good. So removing constraints is really a good way to help people think creatively. Barbara, what's another way?
Well, one thing I use with my students is I try to get them to look at things with new eyes. And one of the things I use is that picture of the old woman, the silhouette of the old woman, and the young woman and the old woman, depending on how you view it. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Invariably, they all see the young woman first, and then I keep telling them to blink, and I keep trying to show them how to see the old woman, and just look at something with different eyes.
Thank you, Barbara. I think that's what we've got are a lot of ideas. Let me give you a few more, and then give you a chance to look to see what you will each do to actually implement these. I like to delegate problems to my biocomputer. Just literally say, okay, I'm going to turn this over in my work day and even in my sleep time. I've got this process that I use frequently called sleepitation, which is like meditation, except it's taking a power nap while meditating in the first part and allowing my body to go to sleep if it wants while I've delegated creation to my biocomputer. And of course, Working with others is another powerful way to increase creativity. And modifying routines. We are habitual animals, and if we can change our habits, we really can change how we're thinking. Now, of course, I think standing up is a great idea. A few of you have seen me at my stand-up desk. I'm standing up now. I started standing up in 1981, somewhat as an accident to increase creativity. And not only do I think that standing works, but I actually think that it works to move. On the screen, you'll see a little fun video of me on a treadmill. And what I'm talking about on this treadmill is the value of moving while thinking. And I've got this treadmill in my office, and I've even got a place to put my computer so I can either talk on the phone or I can work on the computer while moving. So stand up, move. I think all of these are ways to increase our creativity. Well, back to these ideas. To standing up, we can also take the time to put yourself at risk. Often when asked a question, I'll say I have 3 answers for that, and I'll have no idea what the answers are. But what I do know is that I put myself at risk to come up with answers. Music is another way to foster creativity. Baroque-style music of about 60 beats a minute is really a powerful way to allow new thoughts to emerge. Just like relaxation or sleep, we talked about it, or meditation, creativity really can become a habit, particularly if we commit to it, which is these are steps in changing any habit, which is that you commit to it, you monitor it, you practice it, and you celebrate when you've made a change in that habit. So those are some ways to treat creation as a habit. I also think that a healthy body assists in creation. Well, as you can see, I've got a lot of ideas, but again, my purpose here is not to get me to think, not to just share my thoughts, but to assist you to think. So one more time before we stop today, I'd like you to pause and take a minute, literally, to write down what are you discovering about yourself and what do you intend to do differently with regard to creative thinking, to assisting yourself and or students to think more creatively. I'll give you a minute to write, and then I'm going to hear from several of you. So please write down, I discovered that I, or I rediscovered, I learned that I, or I relearned, and then write some related intentions, because it's this self-reflection and this self-intention that really changes all of us. If you're listening to the recording, please do the same, and I'd love to have you email me at dave@fallingawake.com or dave@daveellisleadership.com and tell me, what is your discovery and what is your intention? Quiet now for a minute while you write. Right, that was a minute. Now, once again, I'd like to hear because when you speak your intention, when you speak your commitment, it cements it. When you speak it publicly, it cements it. So please raise your hand with a 5 on your keypad. It also inspires others to commit. So please hit 5 on your keypad, and we will hear from a few of you. Hear what it is that you said, what it is that you wrote about creativity, what you intend to do differently. Marilyn, we'll start with you.
Okay, I've discovered that one must keep his mind open to new ideas and not only follow what has been done over and over. One should create, be able to create, knowing that the sky is the limit. And with that being said, if the intention would be go back to what I originally said in the beginning, which is to have students think outside of the box and know that there are other options rather than just the standard responses.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. And Barbara, what did you write?
Well, I wrote that I realized today that I teach creativity and what it is, but I don't necessarily facilitate it. And I think a big distinction. So I intend to take steps now to facilitate it using the ideas that you've given us. But I can see that there's a big difference between teaching what it is and actually facilitating it.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I think you're speaking for more than just yourself. Sometimes we forget to practice what we teach. And lastly, Elizabeth, what's your intention?
I not just study skills, but also writing and introduction to speech. And my intention is that I will not limit creative thinking to it should be in.
Thanks for speaking, Elizabeth. Our phone connection was a little rough, so I didn't hear it as clearly as I could have, but I appreciate your speaking. And now I'd like to do 2 more quick surveys before we stop for the day. Also, I want to give you all an opportunity, if you'd like to stay on after the top of the hour and visit with some people so that you can be in a small group again. We're going to give you the opportunity to do that. But first of all, 2 quick surveys. The first one is up on the screen. And what I'd like to know is, did you have new thoughts today? Because that was the purpose, but I want to know. I want your honesty and your authenticity. So if you didn't think anything new, push 2. If you had 1 or 2 new thoughts, press 3. If you had several new thoughts, press 4. And if you had some really valuable new thoughts, press 5. So this is just kind of a way for me to evaluate how the call went, particularly how the call went with my regard to intention of having you think new thoughts. So I want you to know that 17% of you said you had some very valuable new thoughts. 17% said that you had, you pressed number 4, several new thoughts. 28% of you said you had 1 or 2 new thoughts. And 2 of you on the call said that, well, so far, no new thoughts. Thanks a lot. I appreciate knowing that and appreciate your honesty. I've got 1 more survey to do, and that is I want to find out, are you coming back? We're going to do this call again. I'll give you a quick preview of that. It's up on the screen. We're going to do this call actually twice more. As you can see on the screen, in 1 week from now, we're going to talk about professionalism, ways to help promote classroom civility and help students define their values and align their actions. In 2 weeks from today, we're going to talk about career readiness and transferring skills to the workplace. In both those cases, my job is to assist you to think new thoughts. I'd like to know if you're coming back. So here's the survey. Please press 1 if you are not returning, and maybe you don't even like this whole thing and think I should discontinue it. Press 2 if you are returning, or if you're not returning but you wish me luck. 3 if you'll probably be back. 4 if you will be back. and 5 if a team of wild horses couldn't keep you away. Just using this survey as a way to check to see. Most of you have voted, but a few of you haven't yet. I'd just like to know your intention about, are you returning or not? And it looks like the people who press 3, 4, or 5 represent close to 90% of the participants, and over 10% of you said a wild horse couldn't keep you away, or at least a team of them. Well, thank you. And as I say goodbye, I want to let you know that if you are still wanting to talk, you can. And the way we do that is you just let us know that you would like to be put into a small group. So if maybe you have an idea that you really want to speak to a few other people, and the way you do that is you just press 1 on your keypad, and what we'll do is we'll put you in a small group, and you can stay in that small group for as long as you want, even though the rest of us are going to leave. So if you press 1 on your keypad right now, what will happen is that Joshua will move you into a small group, and you can share some of your additional strategies, your additional self-discoveries, your additional intentions. And thank you very much for joining. I'm just thrilled to be with you. I think that the work that you do is some of the most amazing and important work in the world. You are preparing the future leaders of our country and really the future leaders of the world. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking to many of you again next week. And for now, bye.